Advanced Health Sciences Psychology B, Virtual Interactive Notebook 5, Day 6, Personality Disorders. This is the last lesson. You've made it. You are done with psychology after you take the Unit 5 test and the final exam. So good job for you. Today's essential question: what characterizes the three clusters? The main idea is personality disorders. The subtopics are defined, cluster A, cluster B, and cluster C. This is how I set it up myself. See? So you have cluster A, B, and C. All right. This is from Chapter 15, Section 10. My dog just came in. Hello, dog. What do you want? Yeah? You want to say hello? Want to say hi to the people? We'll see if you want to say hi to the people. Look at this guy. There he is. This is Cider. He's a Chihuahua pug. He's a chug. Yeah. All right, get out. There you go. So, defined. Someone with a personality disorder has a personality. Remember, personality is the characteristic traits that you display, the way that people can predict you will behave in a given situation. So a person with a personality disorder has a personality that differs from cultural expectations. That's one, differs from cultural expectations. Appears in adolescence or childhood. That's two. And causes distress or impairment. That's three. So a critical part of this is this has to make you less effective in living your life. And if it doesn't, not a disorder. All right. There are three clusters, and on this one, we just don't, you could do a PhD on this. We just do not have time to do this topic justice. So I encourage you to look at the specific personality disorders under each cluster. But very generally, cluster A people display odd or eccentric personality disorders. All right, so their behavior is odd and eccentric most of the time. Cluster B people display personalities that are impulsive and dramatic. Cluster C people display personality disorders that are nervous and fearful. And again, I encourage you, there's a chart here, it's really interesting to look at the different personality disorders in each cluster. Now, I would like to focus on two of them. One of them is in cluster C, and that is obsessive compulsive disorder. Obsessive compulsive personality disorder. Now, this is OCPD. It is not the same as OCD. So people with OCPD, obsessive compulsive personality disorder, don't necessarily do the rituals and that kind of thing. Now, I'm going to read this to you, and you can search your mind and ask yourself, do I know anyone who displays these personality traits? Pervasive need for perfectionism that interferes with the ability to complete tasks. So they're so concerned with being perfectionist all the time that they don't get things done on time, or they might not get them done at all. Preoccupied with details, rules, order, and schedules, so that the schedule is actually more important than the getting things done. Excessively devoted to work at the expense of leisure and friendships. They are workaholics. Rigid, inflexible, and stubborn. Insist things be done his or her way, and they are miserly with money. I know a couple that I think might fit that. But again, I'm not a clinician. I'm not qualified to diagnose people, and neither are you. A little bit of knowledge can be a dangerous thing. Okay, the second one is a cluster B personality disorder, and it is APD, antisocial personality disorder. People with antisocial personality disorder used to be classified as psychopaths or sociopaths, and an old term for this used to be psychopathy. Now, no topic in psychology has caused me more grief than talking about antisocial personality disorder, psychopathy, sociopathy. For whatever reason, people get extremely angry when the definition you use for this doesn't fit their own. I don't know why. And this has happened from multiple sources, right? So what I'm going to tell you is that some psychologists or psychiatrists used to, and in some cases still do, think that there's a difference between being a sociopath and a psychopath, right? A lot of people get really angry if those terms are applied, and they say that saying that is like the R word, you know, and it's actually, you should just say antisocial personality disorder. There's a lot of emotion tied up with this, right? And I'm really not interested in any of it. Any of it at all. I don't care. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but frankly, if you have antisocial personality disorder, I am spectacularly unlikely to hurt your feelings. That's the nature of the disorder, right? So I have known people coming through high school who I think have probably had APD, and most of the time they're great. You know, they don't necessarily think like other people. They're generally very open. They would much rather talk about themselves than talk about me, right? And if you recognize that, okay. And it affects at least 1% of the population. There's some evidence that it's a spectrum disorder, so there are people who can approach it and not actually be full-blown APD. So people with antisocial personality disorder, one of the big things that characterizes them is a lack of empathy for other people. So if you see someone hurt themselves and you feel bad for them, that's empathy. If you see someone, something great happens to them, they win the lottery, or, you know, they achieve something they've been really wanting to achieve. Like if you watch a sports movie and the main character does it and you think, oh, that's great, that's wonderful, look what they did. Then you have empathy. People with APD do not have empathy, right? They view other people in some ways. Like if you talk to people with this, it's not quite, this can be vastly, you know, I don't want to, but generally they don't, like, people are kind of more like objects. Like, I like that truck. I like that person. It's kind of the same feeling, right? They can also be very concerned with society, but they're not necessarily concerned with individuals in society, right? They want a better society that's free and equal. That's very likely for a person with APD, but do they care that you're free and equal? Not really, necessarily, right? Okay, so I'm going to read the definition that your book has. Continuously violates the rights of others. That's possible, but that's not destiny. History of antisocial tendencies prior to age 15. Often lies, fights, and has problems with the law. Impulsive and fails to think ahead. Can be deceitful and manipulative in order to gain profit or pleasure. Irresponsible and often fails to hold down a job or pay financial debts. Lacks feelings for others and remorse over misdeeds. Now that is a spectacularly negative definition of this disorder, because what they've left out is, and what you'll find in the DSM-5, is superficially charming. They're really good with people, at least in the short term. Right. Another thing is they have much lower fear response. They are much more likely to take risks, right? And they are much less pain sensitive. And the people I've known, when they get insulted by other people, they don't fly into a rage generally, right? Because what if a tent peg came up to you and insulted you? What would you feel bad? I mean, what? Now, they often think that they're better than other people. They are kind of the center of the universe. And if they are also more likely to be intelligent, and they are overly represented in law enforcement, law, medicine, politics, and the military, right? And there could be an evolutionary benefit for this, right? There could be an evolutionary benefit for your little clan of 60 people to have one person who is fearless and can plan and thinks they're great and takes a leadership responsibility and is willing to do the tough things that need to be done that other people are maybe a little squeamish to do, right? So this could be adaptive. Something to think about. So I have put in a long video, and you don't have to watch it all, but it's worth your time. I watched the whole thing. It's fascinating. There's a guy named Dr. James Fallon who was doing brain scans of criminals, and he was identifying people with antisocial personality disorder. I believe he uses the term psychopath. And then he found out that he has it, right? And he's a pro-social guy. And so he started asking around, and people said, oh yeah, that fits. And it surprised him. And he's just a brilliant man. And it's really interesting to watch him. And I will say that the people I've known who I think probably have APD are doing very well. They're not violating laws. They don't want to kill people or anything like that. So there's a lot of negative connotations to this that maybe don't need to be there, right? And I think that maybe society on this level is having a bit of a rethink, which I think is good. Okay, so we have Unit 5 test and then the final, and you're done. Thank you very much for sticking with me. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.